Welcome to the Ordinary Marathoner Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Ordinary Marathoner Podcast. My name's Coach Scott. I'll be your host today. It is Thursday, Christmas Eve, December 24th. Hope you guys are having a good week so far. Hope you guys are getting the workouts done. I know it's hard sometimes, especially if you guys are on the road or traveling. Hard to take those few days off or whatever you got to do, and you're focused. You're in a nice pattern, right? You're in a routine, and the holidays come along and they break down that routine. It happens to everybody, but the important thing is to pick it. Get through it, pick it back up, do what you can do, and pick it back up when you get through it all. I want to thank Mike Romans right off the bat. Mike is our latest patron over at patreon.com/ordinarymarathoner. Check that out if you get a chance. I got to tell you, it's more wildly successful than I ever thought it would be. Mike joins Tabby Booze and Ron Booze, Nick Doe, and Debbie Early as our patrons. Love having you guys on board. Thank you so much for all of your support. It really means a lot to us. And you can check that out. And you also see their names at the end of the podcast on YouTube. During the scroll. And if you're watching on YouTube, do us a favor, hit that subscribe button. Love to have you as a subscriber. It really helps the channel out a lot. We've been stuck at 165 now for a long time. So we are hoping to add some more subscribers there. And thank you guys for subscribing, those of you who have. Big congratulations this morning to Tabby Booze, by the way. Tabby went out there this morning. So today, I think that Ron didn't have to work. And so we were able to kind of push back our ride to 6 o'clock in the morning. We didn't have to do a 5 a.m. And we headed up Alpe d'Huez, which is a huge climb in the game, second biggest climb in the game. I screwed up. I didn't set up the ride properly, which meant that we got about halfway up, and then we were kind of all to our own devices, and it was a struggle. Now, I had to actually get up and help my daughter. I didn't finish. I didn't get up to the top. Helped my daughter get up, get ready for the day, and left them to climb the rest of the way. And Tabby, for the first time, she made it up. And I tell you what, you should be more proud than ever, because taking it out of that group ride function means you had to do it all by yourself, and you went out and you did it. And I think that's awesome. And to think that from where you came earlier this year with your cycling, which I think is like basically brand new out of the box cyclist, and she climbed Alpe d'Huez today. I think that's an awesome achievement. So congratulations, Tabby. Amazing job this year. And you look at where you started this year and what you're doing now. I think it's incredible. You should definitely be very proud of yourself. Today will not be our New Year's resolution podcast. Saving that for next week. I do have a couple of really good ideas, I think, on how we're going to make some changes into the new year. Things are going to change. I think more, it won't be wholesale lifestyle changes for me. We talked about making those drastic, making yourself basically a different person overnight, those drastic changes, or whether you want to, dial in the changes, like make little teeny tiny changes. I am kind of stepping back and getting that aerial view and seeing, all right, what things can I change? And I think for me, the bigger changes are trying to organize things like the podcast and the live streams and all the things that we do. And for me, I think that's where the changes are going to focus. There's going to be some focus about training and what I'm doing training-wise. That will change too, and we'll talk about that next week. But for the most part, what I'm looking at is format changes and things to kind of streamline the way we've been bringing you guys the podcast over the last probably 6 months or so. It's been a little, I wouldn't say weak, it's just been unfocused. It's been unfocused, and I think that's sort of detrimental in the long run to the life of the podcast. So we're gonna try to bring a little bit more of a good solid format to that, and we'll talk about that again next week. We are bringing on new athletes like crazy. We have a good deal going on right now for the year end. By the way, Christmas. This would be a great Christmas gift. By the way, coaching. We are giving away 1 month free coaching if you sign up and you commit to 3 months. That first month will be free. We've signed up 2 new athletes in the last 3 days, and man, every single one of the athletes I'm coaching right now is doing a 70.3 next year. It is incredible. That doesn't mean that if you want coaching, you have to do a 70.3. You could do, it could be anything. It could be running only. It could be triathlon only. But check out teamordinary.com. And you get, the connection that we have with Allison Knott as a team dietitian is really incredible. And I think you get a lot, we offer a lot, whether it be just the training element or the training combined with some nutrition information and avenues to have access to a sports dietitian it's incredible. And when you look at that from a team aspect and the things that we're able to do for you guys, I think it works really well. And we've got 2 new athletes to show for it, and hopefully we move into the new year. I'm psyched for you guys, man. We're going to have a lot of accomplishments in this new year. It is going to be a great year for Team Ordinary. We're really, really, really looking forward to it. Merry Christmas, guys, by the way. Did I even say it? Merry Christmas, guys. We're one day early, but this one counts. I'm going to have a Christmas present for you guys that signed up for the Ordinary Half Marathon, by the way. We may or may not have the slideshow ready for you tomorrow. Anyway, moving forward. My daughter, Sam, she's 11. And we were thinking about what things to give her for Christmas. And what we wind up doing was, she's kind of at that point where she's got some older furniture in her room, and it's getting to be a little bit too girly and little babyish kind of thing. And we figured it's time to kind of revamp her room. So we got her a whole bunch of new furniture. And one of the things that she really wanted to do was to repaint her room. Now, we've been living in this house 5 years. All right, 5 years. When we first moved in, it was kind of a weird situation. It was, Sam was going from living in one house, one place all her life to now having dad's house and mom's house. So it was a little weird for her, and I kind of recognized that. Sorry, I had to get a little coffee from my Grandma Junie mug. But I kind of recognized that. I thought it was really important for her to kind of have some leeway to do the things that she wanted to do within her own space in her room. So I told her, I said, listen, you can pick out any color you want. We'll paint your room whatever color you want. And I figured in the back of my head that she was going to hate it, and we're going to have to change it at some point. But let this little girl just figure out what she wants. And she did. She picked a bright, dark purple. It was awful. It was as bad as you can possibly think. It was bright and dark and purple. And true to form, a couple years later, she decided that she didn't want it anymore. We were painting Ellie's room. We were preparing for Ellie to come to the world. And so we repainted Ellie's room. And since we were painting, we decided, all right, let's just do Sam's room again. We'll get rid of the ugly purple. I kind of knew she was going to want to change it anyway. Now, she put a new color in there. It was a lighter color. And I can't even remember. I think it's kind of like a lightish green, almost like a sea foamy color. But to be honest, I should know these things, but I don't. I go in that room all the time, and I don't even know what the color is. But true to form, she's 11 years old, and she wants to change it again. Now, we've been in this house 5 years. This will be the third painting job in that room. But we're gonna let her have her way. It's Christmas, right? It's Christmas. And when I asked her what color she wanted to paint, she said she wanted to paint it navy blue. And she doesn't have a big room. It's a small room. She doesn't get that the space is gonna feel. If you have a small room and you paint the walls dark, it's gonna feel more kind of cramped. And if you paint them light, it feels a little more open. So Stephanie, in her brilliance, talked her into painting the room a lighter color. Basically, it's going to be like a lighter gray. Around when you walk in, the 3 walls that you'll see are all going to be kind of a light gray, and then she's going to have one accent wall. So when you walk in, it'll be facing your back. The accent wall will be navy blue, the color that she wanted. This story's going somewhere, I promise. So we went in to the paint store the other day, the hardware store, to look for paint. We're in the paint section, and I'm trying to take all the little swatches, and I'm trying to take the swatches, but I'm also trying to take like the booklets, because what I wanted to show her was what the rooms actually look like with the paint color. Because sometimes you get the swatch and it looks really not so dark, but when you put it on the wall, it's really dark. So we took the swatches, we took the books, and while I'm sitting in the store, this is a long story to get to a point. I ran into a friend of mine, Scott. My friend Scott just happened to be there. Now, I haven't seen Scott in over a year, since the beginning of COVID. good friend of mine, a former neighbor of mine. I think of Scott, and I think he's a former military guy, just a nice guy, fun guy to hang out with. He knows sports. We talk a lot about sports. He's into like MMA fighting and training. He's a big dude. I wouldn't want to fight him. But overall, a good guy, and it's kind of like one of those things where my first thought was I didn't even recognize him. Because he had the mask on, right? And that's one of the sad parts of this period of time is like people walk around. He had a hat on. It was like a wool hat. It was kind of low, and then he had a mask on. And he kind of was like giving me this look. I think he was trying to figure out if it was me too. And he saw me. He's like, "Hey, how you doing?" We started talking. He had a Raiders hat on. I knew he was a Raiders fan. That's kind of like what tuned me into who he was. So we started chatting. And, the first thing he asked me was, "Hey, are you still doing triathlon? Are you still doing those endurance sport races?" And, and I guess the point that, we talked for a while. And it's kind of sad that, I think this is, it's those relationships, those types of relationships are the people that you normally run into, whether it be, sporting functions or local functions or whatever it may be. You usually just kind of see these people all the time. You get to talk to him, you say hi. He's not huge on social media, so I don't see him out there too often. But those are the kind of relationships that I feel like we're missing out on. Those middle relationships, they're not direct family, but they're like that next level. And it's like you don't call them all the time, so you don't know what they're up to, but then you run into them all the time, and now we're not running into them. So we don't, those relationships fall through, which is sad. But I thought it was kind of neat that the first thing he thought of when he thought of me was triathlon, Ironman. Am I still working out? Am I still doing that kind of stuff? Because, the first thing I thought of him, the things that define him were the things I just said. He's into sports. He's a former military guy, and he's into MMA fighting, and he trains for MMA stuff too. I wouldn't want to fight him. So it's kind of neat. When I thought about it, I'm like, man, I thought about how far I've come since I started training, which was late 2013. So rewind 10 years, and thinking of what someone would have said, like, oh, what's that guy all about? Well, I heard he's I know when he comes to my house, he drinks a ton of beer. He's got 2 kids. He loves the kids, and that's not a bad thing. He watched a lot of sports. He knows his sports. He used to play football in college. Used to, right? That's what you are. You're what you used to do. You're not even what you do now. You're what you used to do. And I thought it was great. I thought it was absolutely great. The transformation, when I thought of it that way. The transformation that now the first thing that someone thinks of when they see me is to ask me about my training and how cool is that? There are worse things in life than to be known as the Ironman guy. There are worse things in life. And I think I talked to some of my new athletes that I when I interviewed them this past week, and I just was like, this is something that defines you. Triathlon is something that you spend a lot of time doing, and it's something that people who know you and the people that know what you go through in order to achieve these things, because all of them, whether they talk about 70.3, they really want to achieve that, but in the back of their mind, that big one is there. That 140.6 is there. And I just found it really cool, like it defines you, the sport. It can define you if you let it. And you think about the people and just let anyone in your head come to mind, and then think about how you look at them, sort of like their legacy, right? It's your legacy, and it's kind of cool. I think it's kind of cool. Moving on to the next sort of topic. I kind of went through that a little bit longer than I thought, but so, and this is going to become a little change of topic, but I heard this the other day. I was listening to a podcast that I listen to often, and it's a little bit political. It's not really, it's political. I don't want to even say what it's called, because I don't want to talk about stuff like that on the show. But there was a point in the podcast that the guy referenced a book that I had read called The Black Swan, which some of you may have heard of. Is Nassim Taleb is the author, and the book is great. Him I could take or leave, actually, in recent years when I see him get interviewed. But the book is great, and So in particular, the podcast referenced this moment in the book, and it's funny because I read the book years ago, and this point didn't stick with me. It didn't stick in my head as something I needed to take with me. It wasn't a takeaway for me. And what he said was this. He said that as you go through life, the successful people collect opportunities, right? Collect opportunities. Work hard, kind of think of, and that part I get, right? So in other words, you're going through life and you meet people, you have relationships, you do things that are productive. You fill in the box of your life with with opportunity, right? You're taking your time and you're building a legacy, really, just almost like we just were talking about. So you want to collect opportunity and don't chase trains. Don't chase trains. And I said to myself, what the hell is that guy talking? What do you mean? Like, like, what are you talking? Like, train. But then he explained, and it's funny because I read the book and I didn't even remember this stuff. The explanation was, if the train leaves at 8 o'clock and you show up at 8:01 and you miss it, well, it's your fault that you missed it. It's your responsibility to get there on time. You can't be worried that, oh, I missed the train. Oh, I'm going to be angry at the train. Oh, let me chase the train and be so worried about the train that you missed it that the focus needs to be on, all right, well, how do you repair the situation? It's your fault. Move on. You're wasting time thinking about things that you cannot change, thinking about, and more importantly, things that you created, situations that you got yourself into. Now, my ex-wife, one of her complaints about me, and you guys I'm sure will agree, if you listen to the podcast, was that I was always, what was the way she put it? I was always, woe is me. Woe is me. And to a certain degree, there are definitely some things that I am. You can call it regret at times. Maybe there's part of that. Poor decisions. I think, for me, when I look back at some of the things that have happened in my life, and I think I dwell on the things that I consider unlucky. And in reality, maybe I put myself in those situations and thinking that I had a very good chance at success or very good chance at things happening that were going to be good, like really good outcomes. And instead, the tide turned or things flipped and a good situation became a bad one. And let me give you a few examples. Thank you for June Walker for my mug. Again, here's a few examples. When I got out of college, I was in investment. I majored in finance at my undergrad. Investment management was my master's degree. And when I got out of college, I was scraping together money as best I could. And I was trying to get an apartment. I was trying to buy an apartment, a condo in White Plains, New York, actually. And I couldn't believe how expensive they were. Furthermore, the prices of these condos were going up faster than I could save. I couldn't save fast enough. I would save a lot. I would save as much as I could. And in a year's time, the price had gone up more than I was able to save. So I didn't have much money to invest at the time, but I remember what I was learning. I was in the process of going to school. I was learning. One of the things they told you was when you're young, you can afford to take chances and take risks with your investment because you have more time. Over the long haul, things will go up. You could take more risk when you're younger. And then when you're older, you can kind of hone it in a little bit better and be a little bit, hopefully you've amassed more retirement savings and then you can kind of pull back on the risk and take smaller risks. Makes sense. It always made sense to me. It still kind of does. It's just... I was hanging out with some guys who were, I worked in a investment company, and they were, they were my age, and they were taking risk. They were taking some serious risk. They were borrowing money in order to buy stocks, and not your blue chippers, like your really big technology stocks. Now, rewind back to the late 90s, and technology stocks were all the rage. It was insane. They were flying. And I watched some of my friends make tons of money just by investing in these stocks. And I was jealous, and I couldn't save fast enough for this apartment. And I was like, all right, I got to take some chances. And I did. And things right off the bat were looking pretty darn good. And mind you, this is the stuff that I learned in school. It's okay to take chances when you're young. So now I've spent a couple years saving money, putting it away, and I'm buying stocks. And now some of them I thought were even. I mean, I was dabbling in some riskier ones and buying some names that were big names in the tech sector. But somewhere around, I don't even remember, 1999, the rug got pulled out from under it, right? I forget the numbers, but like the NASDAQ went from like 5,000 down to 1,500. It might have something like that. It was insane. Basically, all the risky stocks that were maybe trading at a price of like there was a stock called DoubleClick that I bought that I think it was trading at like 110, and it went down to $3, like in the blink of an eye. And I remember looking at the money that I lost, and then my friends they were like owing money. They went from having tons of money to owing money because they had margin calls on the money that they borrowed. And I was sitting there, and now it's like not even the money. It's like for a little bit, the money I saved that grew, and now the money I saved was mostly gone. It was a lot of it was gone. And I'm sitting there wondering, and I blamed it on my teachers. I blamed it on this sort of the cult of investment management. In that, I learned what I learned. I put it into practice. I wasn't as risky as the people that I was, that I knew, and I lost pretty bad. But again, I chalked it up to not my fault. I did what I was taught. And I was angry. I followed my career to Boston. An opportunity came in Boston. I followed that career to Boston. My wife at the time moved up. We bought an apartment together later on, years later. We knew that the real estate market was heightened, but we wanted a nice place, and we both had good jobs, and we both thought we were going to be in Boston for a long time. We were hard workers. We liked, get up in the morning, go to work. We had a great lifestyle for a few years. And then economy started tanking, right? We had the real estate market collapse. The condo that we bought collapsed. The value collapsed. And then on top of it, the firm I was working for, it went under. You guys may have heard of it. It's called Lehman Brothers. It went under, and I got laid off. She was pregnant with my daughter Sam, and then she got laid off. Now we're sitting there in a condo that we can't sell because now the real estate market tanked, and now neither one of us have jobs. And again, it's like you work hard, you make decisions. This decision to move to Boston wasn't taken lightly. But you kind of assume that you're making the right choice, and for a while there, it looked really, really good, like a great choice. And then things fall through. Then I move out here. I get a job out in Springfield. My wife got laid off, so we moved out here. Fast forward to 2 years ago, and they decide they're going to move out their office to Charlotte. Now, by then, my wife and I had divorced, and my daughter at the time was 9, and I just couldn't move to Charlotte. My father would have done anything to keep his job and he was like, he should just go. And I'm like, I can't leave her behind. I didn't want to leave her behind. So I took what I could and I left. I didn't leave. I was forced out on 2 days before Christmas of 2 years ago, which was wonderful. Now, the story doesn't end there, because about less than a year after my firm moved to Charlotte, an official move date when I would have had to have gone to Charlotte, COVID hits. And now all the people that I used to work with, they're all working from home. Some of them haven't even made the move to Charlotte yet. So they're down there in apartments or whatever, but their family is still up here. And now they're up in their New England house, working from home with their job in Charlotte. the job that I could have had under the same circumstances, but I didn't because of that 9-month period between June of 2019 and March of 2020 where there was no COVID. If COVID hit, I would have been able to keep that job. And so I thought about that. I thought about that in relation to what I heard from the podcaster in the Black Swan thing. And how much I dwell on this stuff. How much I dwell on looking back at just these unlucky things, one after the other. And there's more. I mean, I can come up with a laundry list of things. And I dwell on these things. Do you dwell on these things? Do you go back and think about these things that, and I don't even think they're choice. I mean, it was my choice to move to Boston, right? It was my choice to buy tech stocks. It was my choice to buy an apartment, to buy a nice condo in Boston. All of these choices, I believe, were good choices at the time. And still, when I look back at them, I say to myself, man, that was the right choice. It was the right choice. At the time, with the information given, those were, I understand why I made those choices. However, things fell different ways. They went different ways. And I sit there and gee, woe was me. Maybe she was right. She's right about something. Woe was me. When am I going to give myself permission to move on from these things? When am I going to give myself permission to say, hey, just go, just move on. Work harder at something else. Stop dwelling. Don't chase the train. You made those choices. Live with them. Don't dwell on them. Their train is gone. It's gone. You got to look forward. And look, it's not like I sit here and say, woe is me all day long. It's frustrating and annoying. But I tell you what, one of the things I love doing is this podcast. I think it's a great creative outlet. It's a great community that we've built. It's a great positive thing that we move forward with. Training for races, making yourself better physically. For me, working on my own physical capabilities and training, it helps me mentally too. It helps me. It gives me something positive to focus on. It gives me something to strengthen my resolve, to know that hard work pays off at the end. And that whole thought process just gets copied and pasted over all of your life's work, whatever it may be, all the things that you work on. You stop, wasting time. You get very big on making sure when you have to train a couple hours a day, you get very big on making sure that, you have the time to do the things that need to get done. You become very efficient with that. It's great. It's great stuff. Training the lessons applied to training just get copied and pasted across your entire life. So I have these things. I have these trains. These are the things that go in my head every once in a while. And then I think of, all right, if I would have made different decisions, or if things didn't happen, if Lehman didn't go under, if my firm didn't move to Charlotte, if they would have moved to Charlotte 2 years later and I could have worked from home for this year, if I didn't buy a condo at the height of the real estate market, if I didn't buy tech stocks when everybody else was, thinking that I was still doing it in a responsible fashion, and then they fell through. If I didn't do all, I think of those things, where would I be now? Where would I be today? Well, why am I dwelling on that? I met some of my former coworkers over this past year, maybe about a year ago. And we were sitting down to dinner, and we're all in kind of different places now. And it just came up, can you imagine if Lehman didn't go under, if everything stayed together? Because we were doing really well. And we're just, the thought of where we'd all be and what we'd be doing was so crazy. Because of how we just got displaced all over everywhere. Someone's living in Boston, someone's in DC, someone's in New Jersey. I'm in Springfield. Now we're all over the place. But we were a team once, and we were successful doing what we were doing. And then when the firm fell through, everything broke up and scattered. And had it not fell through, but you think about it, that's exactly what they're talking about when he says chasing trains. Don't chase those things, Look forward, be productive. And that's one of my things that I'm going to be looking forward to doing. When I'm going to try to apply those lessons when thinking about my resolutions for the new year. And I thought I'd share that with you guys today because it just was on my mind lately. That's all we have time for today. Hope you guys have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. And remember, every day is an ordinary day unless you make it extraordinary. So get after it.